Hello, everyone. I'm Surya Golagani, Director Marketing here at Datagaps, and thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, we have a couple of quick housekeeping comments. First, we have muted all mics to avoid unintended distractions. Next, the chat room is open so that you can interact with us through the chat. Finally, at the end of this session, we will open it up for Q&A. Today, in this webinar, we'll learn how you can automate your Oracle analytics testing using Datagaps BI Validator. On the panel today, we have Naren Yelamanchili, founder and CEO at Datagaps, Mr. David Small, VP of Sales and Marketing at Datagaps, and Mr. Nishal Kumar, our pre-sales manager at Datagaps. And here is our agenda for today. We'll have a quick overview of Datagaps. Next, we will discuss what BI Validator is and where this is useful and how it helps automate BI testing. Then we move into its demo where we talk about various Oracle analytics related testing aspects like stress testing, performance, and others. And, and followed by a Q&A session. And now I hand this over to Dave. Dave, it's all yours.
Thank you, Surya. And thank everyone for your interest in Datagaps and attending the event. What we have planned, or what I have planned, is really just a little short commercial on Datagaps, what we're all about and what we think about and what we do as an organization. So it really starts with our philosophy of testing. And what we do is we focus on the accuracy of the data pipeline from the point of ingestion through your ETL processes and through data movement into warehouses or data marts and a variety of things. And then finally, what we'll be talking about mostly today is the point of consumption, whether that's Oracle or Power BI, Tableau. Our technology helps you with regression testing and a variety of things along those lines. So as data comes into the enterprise, it could be from your production applications, could be flat files, could be JSON, XML, it doesn't really matter to us, but we validate that data and that is of the appropriate format and such, and it's what you expect coming into the enterprise. And then again, we validate all the way through to consumption. So that's a typical use case for a lot of our customers, is that end-to-end testing. Of course, many of you may still be on OBIEE and need to move to OAC or OAS. We'll be talking about the benefits of that and doing that testing with BI Validator, one of our technologies. Another typical use case that we get is people calling and saying, we're doing a complete architectural change. We have a legacy data warehouse. We have legacy ETL processes. Those are being fed from a variety of sources of data, and we need help with that migration testing. So the migration testing, what we do there is as you move data from the legacy data warehouse and the hundreds or if not thousands of tables that you might have in that legacy warehouse to the cloud data warehouse, then what we do is we validate that all the data has been moved completely and properly and make sure that all the tables have been moved. There hasn't been any kind of anomalies introduced during that migration process. We also, in migration, we also do validation of the legacy ETL processes that fed the legacy data warehouse. And now, potentially, those same ETL processes feed the cloud data warehouse, or you may have new ETL processes, and we validate the fact that they're producing the same results or the results that you expect. And then finally, as we talked, the regression testing of your data analytics platform. A lot of times when people are changing the architecture, the data analytics platform doesn't necessarily change, but it is pointed to that new cloud data warehouse, and we help with regression testing and a variety of things along those lines. So that's another typical use case for us. So testing in analytics and the pipeline, what could possibly go wrong, right? It looks fairly simple, but if you break down the dashboards and the reports, you have a variety of metrics that may be coming from different locations, different files, different calculations. You have charts and graphs that get produced. You have filters and measures and a wide variety of things that all have to come together and be placed and be accurate on your dashboards and your reports, because those are the things that you're making critical business decisions on. And you want to be able to do that based upon trustworthy data and trustworthy output from your data analytics platform. So what could go wrong? Well, the one major use case that we see where it could go wrong is as people are upgrading their data analytics platform from one version to the next, there's oftentimes issues that are introduced just by simply doing that upgrade. So that's a typical use case for us, and what we do is we flush that out and we find out if the new release is producing the same results as the old release. So that's one area that anomalies get introduced. Sometimes it's just the sheer number of dashboards and data elements and all of that need to be validated as well. Sometimes we find issues, or people find issues using our technology in the filters, or if the underlying database has changed, or the data ingestion of the ETL processes have changed. Those all introduce a variety of types of problems in that data pipeline, and it ultimately gets exposed in the data analytics platform. So we help with that regression testing. We can also do performance testing, catalog testing. A lot of times people want to be able to stress the environment because they're putting a lot more users on a particular application, and they want to make sure that it's going to perform. So a lot of times people are using us for stress testing as well. So a number of very good use cases. The one I'd like to highlight here is one of the major universities in the US came to us because they wanted to help, they needed help with the migration, their legacy data warehouse to Snowflake. And so they used us to validate that the data had been moved properly. And they also used us to do the ETL tool upgrade testing to make sure that the new ETL processes were producing the correct results. So they used our ETL capability, ETL testing capability to do that. They did regression testing of OBIEE and also Tableau. They had both those data analytics platforms. And then finally, another thing they did was they have a student information system. And what they wanted to do is make sure that that student information system contained accurate data and that fields weren't null and so on. So they used us to monitor that production application and verify that it contained the right information and it was complete. So they had thousands of tables and reports that they had to go through and validate. And before bringing us in, they were doing a fraction of the testing of the data that's coming into their enterprise. They were doing about 20%, and a lot of it was being done manually. So what they found with us is they could do 100% of the data validation, and that was critical to them because a lot of the reports and information that they produced were actually consumed by people outside of the organization, the public. And compliance people would need to look at this information, and it had to be 100% accurate. So they got 100% data validation. Their cost of their manual testing went down by 60%. So very good success story for them and for Datagaps. Let me talk a little bit about the architecture of BI Validator. And this is whether it's OBIEE, OAS, Tableau, Power BI. But the architecture is laid out here. It is a client-server implementation. We install either on-prem or in your cloud behind your firewall. So we have no access to the data of the reports, the dashboards, or even the software. So you're well protected from Datagaps being able to grab or see into the data that you are testing using our BI Validator technology. So things happen in the client. So your interaction begins by logging into the BI Validator client, sitting on your desktop, and that's where all your interaction is. That's where you tell it which version of Oracle data analytics you want to connect to. You tell it, you give it some credentials to be able to log in. And you also indicate which test cases that you want to run. And so all that interaction, and we'll demonstrate that here in a few minutes, is done at the client level. And through that interaction, there's information that gets stored in the repository. So the test cases, prior runs of the test cases, the credentials for logging into your data analytics platform in Postgres repository, or some people use their own version of Oracle for that repository. So metadata gets stored there and a variety of things along those lines. We layer in on top of your data analytics platform, and today we'll be talking about Oracle. And we invoke procedures within Oracle, and at times we may invoke a procedure and store some information back into the repository because we may want to compare that to a future run. There's a variety of things that get stored back in the repository, but we actually fire the procedures that you're accustomed to seeing in your Oracle data analytics platform. And then finally, there is a BI Validator server capability, and that server does a number of things. It gives you browser-based reporting against test cases that have been executed. So somebody doesn't have to log into the client to be able to see the results. They can do that through a URL. You can also invoke the procedures through a command line execution capability. It's part of the BI Validator server. And then finally, it gives you the ability to schedule jobs. So if you have tests that you want to run at night or on a particular day, on a particular schedule, we provide a scheduler for you to be able to do that. So that's a little bit about Datagaps, our end-to-end philosophy of testing the data journey all the way through to consumption. And what I'd like to do now is turn this over to Nareen and to start the demonstration. By the way, if you have questions, feel free to post those in the chat, and we can either respond to them or in the chat, or we may bring them up at the end as well. So thank you.
Thank you, David. So I'll be walking you through the demo, and Nishal will be sharing the screen. So what you're looking at is the BI Validator client. So it's Windows-based software that you can install on your desktop pretty quickly and get started. So the client can be used to run your, connect your OBIEE or OAC environment, as well as execute the test. So when all the test results and the metadata, test case metadata, everything is stored in the repository, like Dave mentioned. We'll quickly go through the connection options for OBIEE or Oracle Analytics. So the very first version that we started supporting was actually back in 10G, OBIEE 10G, and then 11G, and then 12C, and then now we support OAS and OAC also. So long history for this tool with OBIEE and OAC and OAS. So we'll show the Oracle Analytics server connection. So typically there are, we won't go into the detail in this call, in this webinar, but there are two steps generally. The third step is optional. So the tool uses the SOAP API of OBIEE or Oracle Analytics to connect and integrate. So that's what we are asking here in the first step. And then in the second step, it automates any web login, for example, your single sign-on or your authentication, any other authentication options that you might have using Selenium, embedded Selenium in the tool. And then last step is the usage tracking. Is basically it integrates. So if you have usage tracking, if you are familiar with it, like Oracle Analytics logs all the requests in the database in the usage tracking schema is what it refers to as, and then we pull information from that and use it within the test. So once we are done with this connection, so the tool automatically fetches your catalog information like reports, dashboards, and all the information, and then it's available to create your test with simple drag and drop scenario. We'll examine again. We also connect to OAC and then we also support OBIEE, like I mentioned. So so anywhere you have this, we support it. Yeah, we'll first look at the different test plans that we have, and then we'll go through few of them. For Oracle Analytics, we have 10 test plans, and they can be categorized into 4 areas. One is regression testing, upgrade testing, regression testing, and then where we are trying to ensure that your dashboards and reports are working as expected and there is no regression. Anytime you deploy a new RPD or a new web catalog or any changes happen in your ETL or an upgrade in the Oracle Analytics environment, for example, you want to make sure that the reports and dashboards are working as expected, functionally as well as from a performance standpoint. So that is regression testing. And then we have performance or stress testing, which is mainly where we do like performance is like we are trying to monitor the performance of your reports over a period of time and understand whenever and alert whenever there is a regression in the performance. And stress is like we are trying to simulate concurrent user load and then ensure that your your platform is supporting the expected concurrent user load. And then there are other test plans like functional and security testing or metadata testing. So functional testing primarily we'll go over some of these, but they fall into the category of ensuring that your RPD and subject areas are properly defined. There are no errors with different combinations. Or another aspect is whatever data you see in your reports. Is it trustable data or not? So we do end-to-end testing there. So all these test plans are available. We'll go over with some of the popular ones. We'll start with a dashboard test plan, and then we'll go to a couple of others after that. So we'll start with the dashboard test plan. So dashboard test plan it's basically it's very easy to create, and almost all test plans follow the same pattern. It has a wizard driven interface where you can select your options step by step and execute it. The first step would be to select your connection, and then in advanced options you can select, let's say, one more thing you can select is you want to compare 2 environments or 2 different users from a run the dashboard as 2 different users and then run and compare them. In this case, we'll try to do that because we want to simulate a difference, and because there is user level security enabled for these dashboards. And then you can also specify options like how many you want to run in parallel and things like that. This test plan works on the Oracle Analytics dashboards, and then if you want, optionally you can pull the prompts and validate the prompts, a list of prompt values and things like that also. And then so once you make these selections, the next step is to create your tests. Like there are multiple ways to add your tests to this test plan. The most easy one is to drag and drop from the catalog tree. The left side, as you see, this is your web catalog tree. From that, BI Validator automatically retrieved it from your Oracle Analytics environment, and then you can expand and then drag and drop one dashboard, or you can expand and drag the whole folder if need be. So it is very easy to create this test. this is one. So let's do one of them initial, and then so one you can go navigate to the dashboard and then drag and drop here. So as soon as you drag and drop, what the tool is doing is it is connecting to the Oracle Analytics environment and executing the test, not only retrieving the details of the dashboard, but also executing it and getting a PDF snapshot of that dashboard. So if you had selected, prompts, it would have pulled the prompts also, and if the connection, in this case, the connection, it's validating that the connection is still active. You can notice that basically the connection settings that we gave, it is automatically launched and then performed a login. It happened pretty quickly. You didn't see that, but it is automatically entering the username, password, and automating that process. So it brought in the report. It added this dashboard to the test, and then you can see that there is a little PDF icon. And if you click on it, it will show you the snapshot it took as it added the test. The idea is that we are capturing the snapshot of your dashboard at time T1, and at a later time T2, we are executing this test and validating that the latest snapshot is comparing that with the snapshot we took earlier at time T1 and showing the differences. So this test plan is primarily for regression testing. So in this case, like we are going to run against a different user, so we'll simulate the difference. But generally, the way it happens is, let's say you are doing a upgrade, and then you want to ensure that there's no regression. It can be upgrade, or you're deploying a new RPD or web catalog, right? And then you want to ensure that there is no regression. There may be changes, but those changes should be only the ones that you are expecting. So before the deployment or the upgrade, you would take a snapshot or update the snapshots that you have in this list. And then after the upgrade or deployment, you would go and run the test to validate that and identify the differences. It's very simple test. We are showing for one dashboard, but you can do this for hundreds of dashboards. Okay, and then we showed you one way to add the dashboard, which is to drag and drop. But what if you want to add make your own prompt selections and do your own custom filter values, prompt values, right? So that's where that plus sign, you can click on that plus sign, and then it will launch your Oracle Analytics environment in an embedded browser. And you can navigate to just like a browser. You can navigate into your dashboard and then make the prompt selections here. And then let's say we change the prompt selection here, and then basically it's very as simple as clicking on capture in the top. What it does is it will automatically look at all the prompt selections you have made, and whether it's their default or the ones that you changed, and then it will capture that. And you can do this for multiple of them if you want. We'll stop with one for now, and then once you are comfortable with the prompt selections, you can say add these pages to dashboard pages to the test plan. So that is automatically. Now, if you open and view this one, basically you will see the same thing with the prompt selections made. So we selected that collection, so it is showing that data for that collection prompt. And similarly, it will also capture the prompt selections that you made in a parameters here. So so that if you want to edit it later point, you can do that also. Yeah. So we'll show, it's basically, it'll show you the list of, if you see here, it captured the collections as the prompt selection that was made. So similarly, all other prompt selections are also captured automatically. So if you want, you can edit these here also potentially. So with just very easy to, with your interface that you are familiar with, you can navigate to your report and then or dashboard and make the selections and add it to this test actually. So once you are comfortable with your list of tests that you want to execute, next step is to, like I mentioned, if there is an upgrade or all these tests are already automatically saved in the repository, so you don't need to click on save again. So you can have the upgrade happen, and then you can come back to this test plan. And what you would do is run the test. So when you run the test, like I was mentioning earlier, it will execute both the dashboards that we have, and it will get the latest snapshot and identify any differences from the versions that we had taken earlier, snapshots of that we took earlier, and then it will show you the differences. Here we are expecting a difference because we are chosen to run this against a different user. Like when we took the snapshot, we took for a user called Rodney, and then when we are running it as a Noonan user. So this is basically, this same strategy can be used to compare your, for example, dev to QA or QA to prod environments also. So as you can see, it is highlighting the differences, between the two, and then basically it is also, it's not highlighting. If you notice closely, it's not highlighting the charts. It's highlighting the text differences because we are in the text mode right now. If you want to see the text differences or the chart differences also, so you can select the option called appearance in the top and then do a compare. It will automatically identify the chart differences, including the color differences also. And you can make this as a default also, the appearance as the default difference option. So if you see the bubble chart, like it's showing, the bubbles are highlighted as being missed on the both sides actually now. Okay. And then so this is a very simple test but very effective test because it will identify any issues or any changes that when you're not expecting those changes. And if you do expect something, you can validate that only the expected changes are available and nothing else. Another thing it does is it also validates your performance of your report. Like if the report execution time is much lower than the benchmark time, or which is the snapshot time, then it will flag that as a warning. In this case, there are differences, so it failed. Failure is a more like higher degree of status than warning, so it is not showing warning here. But even if there are no differences, it is automatically monitoring for the performance of the dashboards also. Okay. So that's mainly, and all your runs, the history is saved automatically. So if you run 10 times, you can go back and see the history of your execution. So as you can see, it will show the date and time when it was executed previously. And then if you have multiple users, let's say all the users can go and look at this report. You can schedule them. You can trigger this from command line or trigger from an API also. All those, and then you can set up notification options also, so that you get an email notification whenever this runs. There's web-based reporting also available, so that you don't have to log into this tool to look to see the failures. But so that's pretty much it for the dashboard test plan. What we covered is regression testing in this use case. Another aspect of regression testing is the upgrade testing, and many of you are in the process of migrating to OAS or OAC, or maybe already migrated to that. But even if you have migrated already from one version of OAS to another version of OAS, or if you are in the process of migration, comparing your reports between OBIEE to OAS or OAC is a big challenge. Like because you do have, you generally have like hundreds or thousands of reports and dashboards. It's very difficult to ascertain that all these reports are working as expected after the upgrade without the users complaining about it at a later point. So we'll go through the upgrade test plan. So the upgrade test plan was actually developed for Oracle. Oracle itself uses our tool, used our tool in the past for the upgrade test plan, and they during a major upgrade, and so they asked pretty much asked for this test plan at that point. So what we are doing here is we are selecting the OBIEE environment, legacy OBIEE environment, and OAS environment here. And then we are going to basically compare these two reports, the reports between these two environments. So you can go to the next step now. Yeah. So here again, similar options again as mentioned before, like nothing. Pretty much all test plans follow the same plan. So similar options, but slight small variations between test plans. And then again, you are now ready to add your test. So we'll select a dashboard, or and then this upgrade test plan is more at a analysis level. The reason being, like it provides you option to compare the UI or the which is the PDF comparison, as well as the data comparison also. So when you drag and drop a dashboard, for example, here, it will automatically pull in, if the dashboard has 4 analysis, it will pull in all 4 analysis into the tests here. So as you can see, there are 4 analysis in the regional sales overview dashboard. It pulled in all 4 of them. And then if you do if you select data format and pull the same thing, it will pull in that underlying data, which is nothing but the CSV export of your analysis into this test plan now. So we'll show you both of them. So what we are doing here is, like, we are adding these tests, but we are not running them yet. We are actually just selecting what we want to run, because upgrade is like we are comparing the two reports or analysis real time between the two environments. So we are not taking any snapshot and then comparing at a later point. So we, until we run, we won't be able to see what the snapshots that it's taking. So we'll go ahead and run this here now. So based on the settings, like I was we were showing earlier, like you can notice that 3 of them are running in parallel, and that is the setting we had by default. So they, as expected, we were expecting some differences actually. We got some failures, both PDF as well as which means visual differences as well as data differences. So we are looking at the visual differences now to start with. So it's a simple analysis pie chart with differences, but you can see that the values are same, the text values are same, but colors are different. So like I was saying earlier, like text is meant for more like the text difference, but the title has changed. If you see, notice the category sales title has changed. It is identified that. But let's say you want to identify the color changes also, which is important pretty much, right? If it is a status, for example, then the color is important. So So it will highlight the color differences also if you or choose appearance as the option. Okay. So depending on your need, you can either use appearance or text, and then you can make appearance as an option as a default option in the property step of the test plan. Okay. Similarly, there is data. So we pull in the data, right? So data differences can also be viewed here. So here, if you see, it is showing data that you got from the pre-upgrade connection and then post-upgrade connection. And then it is saying that basically all of them are mismatches because, if it will, it is identifying that none of the records matched. So, but we noticed that the category, for the same category, we have different values. What if we have more of these values, right? Like here there are 3 records, so we are able to identify the differences. What if I want to see the differences side by side and for the same category value, right? So there is an option for that. So you can you can basically define. And also another option is also available where, okay, I don't care, there are very minor differences. Yeah, so you can see that there is a unique key that you can specify. We know that category is unique in that report, so it can be one or multiple unique columns that you can select, and you can reopen the test. What it does is it will recompute the differences and then show you the differences side by side, this time with the actually the difference with the using the join condition of category. So it is able to correlate those 2 differences and then show you side by side. Yeah, as you can see, for technology category, it is showing the differences side by side. And maybe you don't want to see these as differences because there are minor differences. So there are options to set a variance so that, like, even if the value is like 1% difference or something, you can say choose to not to show them as differences. Okay, still pass the test. Okay, so this is the upgrade test. Again, like the remaining test plans, you can schedule this. One of our customer has hundreds of such tests, not hundreds, actually thousands of these tests when they upgraded from OBIEE 12C to OAS. So they had 3 in each test plan. They had thousands of these, and then validated pre-upgrade and post-upgrade. Because most of the time, OAS upgrade is not an in-place upgrade. So you'll normally have both, especially when you're upgrading from like OBIEE, for instance, right? You will normally have both the environments running in parallel, pointing to the same database, so that you can compare apples to apples, the reports, and then this test plan is very handy because it's comparing your UI and report data and all of that, like in real time, and then showing you the differences. Okay, so we have gone through the 2 use cases in regression testing. One is the dashboard testing, and now the upgrade testing of the analysis. Next step is especially we are focusing this webinar on the upgrades also primarily. So one more thing that's very important during the upgrade is when you stand up your OAS environment or OAC environment. So it's important to validate that when you have, let's say, hundreds of users or thousands of users, important to validate that the environment is performing as expected under the stress. So we don't want to go live and identify that the reports are very slow as soon as like 100 users start using the new environment. So that's where the stress test plan comes into play. The stress test plan is able to simulate concurrent user load. In fact, hundreds of concurrent user load. And in this case, we will just start with the modest 2 users, concurrent users. But there are several parameters here that you can use, like ramp up time, number of pages for each user, and then think time. And then SLAs are more for flagging issues in your report execution. So all these parameters you can adjust so that you can simulate a realistic user load and concurrent user load, and and there are several metrics you can see in the right side that we capture automatically while executing this test. And then when you can continue and you can add your test plans, test your dashboards here. What we do is whenever you run an OBIEE dashboard, there are several things here. We'll drag and drop and show a folder like earlier, like I was saying. We can drag the whole folder also, right? We'll just demonstrating that it automatically pulled all the dashboards underneath it. Yeah, so once your tests are set up, like you can define the parameters and all that stuff, also prompts also if you want to. And once your tests are set up, you can continue and run the test and this test. As simple as that. No coding required at all, like very simple and straightforward. And you can run this test as multiple users also. Like OBIEE often caches these results if you run it as a same user. So potentially you can run it as a provide this tool an input of username and passwords also, or if you are able to simulate run as you can provide just usernames also. So all these advanced options are available for executing this test as different users. And one of our so earlier there was a question, how many tests can you run in concurrently, and then basically that's a function of your so as you can see, it is launching two browsers here because we selected two users and logging in as those users and executing the test the dashboards in the and that we selected. So the main thing is, like, if your dashboards run are very performing and they're coming back in a second or something, so there's more work for BI Validator to simulate this concurrent user load, which means it will require more cores in this system wherever this BI Validator is running to simulate the concurrent users. So what we have seen is typically each core is able to comfortably simulate with anywhere between 5 to 10 concurrent users. So some of our customers, so what they did is one customer, for example, I mentioned in the chat, simulated a 1400 concurrent user load. They had pretty much executed the different test plans concurrently from 10 different machines. So all this again reports are saved. Data is saved in the repository and available for export, and so that if you want to do further analysis or reporting on top of it, you can do it. So we also identify like the report initial dashboard load time, as well as the time it took for the page to completely render, like, because normally when you open the page, you will see that initial page and then page loading or something like that, right? And then after that, like all the analysis and the charts will render. So we capture both timings actually. And then we let this run, and then so basically, as you can see in the bottom, it's simulated the two concurrent users, and it's executing and completing the run. We'll quickly go to the so what we have done is now stress testing. Similarly, performance testing could also be done, like more performance testing. Our focus is more for monitoring the performance and not executing and not doing a concurrent stress test. We'll now move on to the functional testing aspect support in this tool for Oracle Analytics. One of the popular test plan there is what is called the subject area test plan. In OBIEE, one of the key features is to be able to create your own ad hoc reports from the subject area. So it's a very extremely powerful feature. But at the same time, it's a very hard to test in general if you are doing as a manual test, because there can be literally several hundreds or thousands of combinations that you may have to test to if you actually try to test it actually. So because any combination of, let's say, a dimension attribute and a fact measure can throw an error if it's not defined properly in the RPD, right? So, so for example, here if you we'll show a small example here. As you can see, we are just selecting in one subject area one dimension entity and a fact folder. And then in the right side, you can see all the different types of tests that we are automatically generating. Like one test is only for querying the list of dimension attributes and validating. And then second test is a combination of, for example, a single dimension attribute with fact measure, right? So different combinations, such that permutations and combinations. The goal is that to identify if there, for example, the types of issues that you can encounter are like, okay, some column changed in the database, and then the OBIEE does not reflect on the Oracle Analytics, does not reflect the change yet. Or it could, and then it fails at runtime, right? Or the other type of change could be the join is defined wrongly in the modeling of the RPD, and then that causes the report to either run slow or not produce any results, or throw an ODBC error. So several things can go wrong. Unless a user ends up running and showing, then you won't identify these issues. So by generating all these different combinations, we'll continue, it'll run and show it. So when you run this one, it will automatically generate what are called logical queries in Oracle Analytics. So with these different combinations, and then identifying if there is any error or if there is data returned or not. And then if you have usage tracking enabled, it will identify if any issues with the queries. Also, it will identify some of the basic issues with the physical database query that is generated also. So it's a very powerful plan. It's humanly impossible to do all these combinations of testing. So, but the tool is automatically generating these combinations and performing these tests. So we'll let this run. Again, all these tests are again saved, and you can rerun them like any other test plan. So we showed the dashboard test plan, upgrade test plan, and then stress test and the subject area test plan. There are other test plans like catalog test plan, security test plan, more at the metadata level. They validate your catalog objects as well as your security settings for them. And then we have query test plan and data compare test plan is quite popular in not just for this BI Oracle Analytics, but any Tableau, Power BI, any of them. Like so these are all more at a functional testing standpoint. Like they are able to validate your the database SQL query that is generated, as well as the data shown in your reports when compared to, for example, let's say you want to validate a metric that is shown. The best way to validate that metric that is shown in your dashboard is to write your own query against your database or source database or warehouse and validate it, right? So that's what data compare test plan does. So those are the main things we wanted to go over without overwhelming you too much in this webinar. Any questions, Surya, at this point?
Thanks, Naren. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, we did answer the concurrent users question already. And the same user attendee also asked, how many connections to the server can be stress tested?
Yeah, so each user, so each user, let's say you're doing a 400 user concurrent test, each user is a separate connection. And you almost always want to simulate as a different user because of the caching. Like, for example, one customer, they started off simulating 400 concurrent users, but they were not seeing the load on the, we can easily validate the load in the usage tracking and all these different places, right? And the sessions that show up in the Oracle Analytics admin pages, they were not seeing enough load actually. So what they found, this was a while ago, what they found was that the caching was the problem. So they basically created some dummy users, 400 dummy users, and then you can, as I mentioned earlier, you can pass these dummy users as input to this one, and then they are able to simulate. So each user will be a separate connection in that case.
Okay, thanks for answering that, Naren. So when we do speak to a lot of customers while demoing this particular product. So what are the usual questions the customers ask to us?
Yes. So in the some of the questions surround around do we support Oracle Analytics connection cloud, right? So we do support that, and then we OTBI or BI Publisher has become quite popular now. If you are on the Oracle applications on the cloud, so if so we do support Oracle BI Publisher also and OTBI. So for example, when you are migrating to Oracle Cloud, Oracle applications in the cloud, the only way you can access data from there is through OTBI for the most part. So some customers, for example, use us to compare the data, in the using an OBIEE report to their source or legacy database to validate that okay, the data got migrated properly to that the environment. And in other cases, some customers don't want to run the reports, but want to validate that the query that is generated by OBIEE is accurate, because the data is constantly changing in the database. So that's where we have physical query test plan, which what it does is it from the usage tracking, it reads the database SQL query that is generated. It doesn't really submit the request to the database, but it's very efficient that way. It is able to run the test without having to submit the results to and the queries to the database. So those are some of the common, more advanced questions that we get from the from the customers.
Okay, great, thank you. Any niche implementations or most difficult implementations you want to mention?
Yeah. So basically, we one of the customer had, like I was saying, they wanted to simulate 1400 concurrent users, and this was one of the early implementations of OAS. So what happened? So we simulated the 1400 concurrent user load, and then immediately we started identifying a bottleneck in not just here, but in another customer also with similar thing. What we find is immediately we find a bottleneck in the database, or middle tier memory is not good, or not enough. So CPU is maxing out. So it's a cycle. Basically, it's not one-time thing. So you'll have to repeat. You have to identify the bottleneck, fix that, and then repeat the test again and again till you reach the point where you get the performance you're looking for.
Okay, great. This question probably for many of the Oracle users. How different is BI Validator from Oracle BVT? Can you explain that?
BVT, if you are familiar, it's a free tool that Oracle had created some time back, but they have stopped supporting it now. So it's and mainly it does some few things from this here. Not mainly regression testing is the focus there, and it doesn't support prompts and things like that. But prompts are really important in any testing actually. So but in they're not supporting that anymore. And so some customers have reached out to us saying that they're moving. They used to use BVT and they're moving away from it now, and they want to use BI Validator now.
Great, thank you so much, Naren, for that. Dave, you want to add some things here? Talk about some free trials that we have.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways that people connect and engage with Datagaps. Some of it has to do with a custom demo for an organization where we go through a discovery call, and during that discovery call, whether it's on the BI Validator side or the DataOps suite side, we talk about what their requirements are and what their needs are, so we can craft a demo to meet their specific needs. There is an opportunity to do a free trial or a proof of concept as well. When we do proof of concepts, we typically try to identify what use cases we're going to use to prove out the technology. We like to keep the proof of concept to a duration of 2 weeks, but we extend if necessary. And, you know, we help people install, get connected, and get started with some test cases, some use cases. And during those 2 weeks, we like to have periodic catch-up calls, so you know we can identify if they're struggling with anything or need an explanation. And it just runs very smooth when you do it like that way. People find that we're an organization that is very collaborative in our approach with people, and we also are very collaborative in terms of adding new capabilities and new features to the product line where it makes sense. So, you know, we're sort of a no pressure organization. We really think about the customer's needs and their requirements, and try to identify how we can help them solve their problems, not just sell them software. So, you know, that's some of the approaches that we take. I think we're winding down on time today, Celia, right?
Yes,
So,
Dave.
I'd like to just thank everybody for their attendance and interest in Datagaps. It's been a pleasure presenting and demonstrating the technology for you. And we'd love to hear from you. Any feedback is welcome. And we'd love to hear from you in the future.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Nishal and Naren again. And thanks everyone for joining us today in this webinar. See you all later. Thank you.